Okay, I'm in.
Perfect. Now, get on there and copy those photos over.
Copy that. Okay, I found the files. Which one should I copy? The RAW or the JPEG?
I'm not sure.
Do you even know the difference? Is there a difference?
I don't know. I would have to research what the difference is.
Excuse me. I couldn't help but overhear that you need to know the difference between JPEG and RAW. Yeah, okay. Which one should I copy over? Easy. You should definitely get the RAW photos. Do you want to know why? I guess? Sure. Perfect. Because in this episode, we're going to go over the difference between RAW and JPEG. Are you curious? Yes, but I'm kind of in a hurry. And who are you talking to? MisaCurious. Hi, my name is Sean Misa, and welcome to my channel, where I break down photography and videography into easier, bite-sized pieces. In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between RAW and JPEG, and why after this, you'll want to shoot in RAW for all of your photos. There's benefits to both, but the benefits of RAW way outperform the benefits of JPEG. Let's go ahead and break down the difference between JPEG and RAW. JPEG is a very common file type, and it's easily accessible and viewable on most devices without the need for a separate app. They are also smaller in file size since they are compressed and therefore quicker to load. RAW, on the other hand, is more complex. It's uncompressed and therefore a larger file size. It's also not as easily accessible or viewable without a separate app. So you'll most likely need a special software like Lightroom or Photoshop or something else like that to open and view the files, let alone edit. Okay, with all that, it sounds like JPEG is the clear winner. I'm just gonna take everything with JPEG. Whoa. Not so fast. Even though it sounds like the win is easy for JPEG, RAW is far superior when it comes to editing. But what if I don't want to edit? I mean, shouldn't it look good at a camera? I am spending about 2-3 grand. If that's the case, then yeah, you can go ahead and leave it as is and just take JPEGs. But then you're letting the camera manufacturer choose how your photos should look. You can still edit your photos to a degree, but it is limiting. My favorite analogy is comparing this to buying a steak at the grocery store. At the grocery store, you have two options. You can get the ones that are pre-marinated or the raw steak. Okay, so let's go ahead and go with option number one. You're at the grocery store and you'll sometimes see some pre-marinated or pre-seasoned steaks. Those are good and all, but what if you aren't a fan of cilantro? I know some people who just hate cilantro. They think it tastes like soap. But if you hate cilantro, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna pick out every little piece of cilantro off of the steak? No, it doesn't make sense. With those, you can add salt and pepper and whatever spices you want, but the underlying flavor is still there. This is what JPEG equates to. They add their own contrast, saturation, color, magical goodness, whatever they want to add to kind of differentiate their photos from the other manufacturer. And it's all built in. In post, you can do a few edits to kind of make it your own, but overall, you'll still have their base edit. And it's compressed into a smaller file size. So if the shadows are pure black and your highlights are pure white, you can't alter that. It's lost details. Lost forever. When you buy a raw steak, on the other hand, you can choose exactly what spices you want to add. And you can customize your own flavor. So if you love cilantro, add your own cilantro. This is what RAW equates to. The picture is generally taken with a lot of data. Sometimes it can show up as less contrasty and sometimes slightly less saturated. This is done because it doesn't compress the photo and it gives you full control of how you want to edit your photos. Also, since it isn't compressed, you have the ability to recover some of the details lost in the highlights and the shadows versus a JPEG. Also, if you aren't a fan of meat, the same also applies to store-bought salads versus homemade ones. You can choose your own toppings, dressings, and yeah, all that goodness. So let me go ahead and show you a few examples of the same photo taken as a JPEG versus RAW. With a JPEG, on this photo, the highlights look really blown out. if we try to recover that, they don't pull back as much. Data that is completely white or completely black is crushed and lost. You're stuck with what they give you. On the other hand, with a RAW photo, we can pull back some of those details and reveal the clouds and the detail in the sky. Here's another example, but going in the opposite direction. Let's say when you took this one, you wanted a dark, edgy shot, but now that you have it, you're viewing it on the bigger screen, you change your mind and you don't want it as dark and you want it to be just a little bit brighter. With a JPEG, you can't recover all those lost details. Like I mentioned before, if the blacks are completely crushed, it's lost details. Nothing you can do to recover it. With a RAW photo, we can lightly reveal what was once lost. Taking photos in RAW has such huge benefits that it almost outweighs using JPEG. The small benefits of JPEG would be a smaller file size and instant sharing. So if you are pressed for space on your memory card, then yeah, go ahead and shoot JPEG. But most of the time, I would highly recommend taking it in RAW. Plus, with RAW, you can always save it as a JPEG later. You can even do it after you're done making all your edits and making it look just like you want it. That's why most professional photographers photograph in RAW versus JPEG, and why I encourage you to do the same. You want the ability to be creative with your own photos and not be held by the manufacturer's limits. Okay, so this is actually fairly easy to do. Right now, this is my Sony a6600. The settings may be similar on like a Nikon, a Canon, a Fujifilm, Panasonic, or whatever you're using. So ideally what you want to do is go to the menu, and then underneath, for the Sony, underneath the first tab, which is the quality, image, and size, the first one you're going to be looking for is file format, which is nice and easy because it's the very first one. Once you look into that one, you have the option to choose JPEG, RAW, and JPEG, and just RAW. The nice thing about having the RAW and JPEG is you do have the flexibility to go ahead and shoot in RAW and have the ability to quickly see JPEG on your computer or on your phone. So I like to go ahead and shoot in RAW and JPEG. I'll go ahead and press accept, and I'm good to go. And there you go. Now you're ready to take beautiful photos in a high quality RAW format. If you have some questions about RAW or anything else really, drop them in the comment section below. In my next video, I'll be featuring a question asked by Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. I'll be talking about how to get those starbursts you see from streetlights. So be sure to like this video, subscribe with the notification bell turned on so you can be notified when the next video comes out. Also, if you found this video helpful and know someone like you who would love to learn this stuff, share this video with them. So go out there and experiment with taking RAW photos and see what limitations you experience or what limitations are now lifted. Be sure to use the hashtag MisaCurious, and I might feature one of your photos in a future video. What are you waiting for? Get out there and be curious.